Today, I'm going to take you step by step on how I built this bioactive enclosure for my pair of Leachies. But before we can build this setup, we have to temporarily move some dudes around, like my male Leachie, my pair of Chihuahuas, and then finally my super red Tokay gecko. Once this is done, we can start on our masterpiece. So let's get this invasion started with the Leachie. We start out building him a temporary setup. While this isn't the prettiest, it is only for a couple of days until the setup is complete. It's crazy how big this dude has gotten since I got him last April. Finally, a ready-to-breed adult for our breeding project of Leachianis. Well, they don't call them leaky Leachies for nothing. Looks like we have to freshen up this enclosure before we can move anyone in. This was honestly the biggest shock I had when I first got into Leachies. They poop so much, and it's always on the walls of the enclosure. Very annoying to clean up, but looking at that potato face they make, it's all worth it in the end. Once everything is cleaned up, we begin to move the Chewies. This will also end up being a temporary setup. Right now we are in the works of building a custom bioactive enclosure for them, so they won't be in this one for very long. After the Chewy pair is moved, the same process is done for their enclosure as we get it ready for the super red Tokay. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I was very anxious to move this Tokay. With this gecko being worth thousands and thousands of dollars, just the thought of her running out and getting loose had me on the edge. All we can do now is figure out where she is hiding and hope she doesn't get past us. And thank the gods we were able to get her. Just look at this beauty. There is no way you can put a price tag on it. I mean literally, stop sending me offers for this gecko. I'm not gonna take them, she's mine. Now it's time to move her into her new enclosure. Once again, this will be a temporary setup as we work on a larger custom-back bioactive enclosure for not only her, but also her partner's breeding enclosure and setup. More on that coming soon. Now, technically, we could just throw the Leachies in here and call it a day, but that's not what Project Jungle is about. We're here to give the animals the best enclosure we can build. With that being said, all the plants in Substrate are still good, so we'll start by taking them all out to use for different builds in the future. Now all that's left is to move the setup so we can add a custom background to it. It's as easy as a... Well, that's a small problem. There we go, all fixed. First things first, we have to make the background. We'll want to use some hardscapes to kick this off. The only issue is, I'm a little low on materials right now. Luckily, today's sponsor Temu is here to help, so let's see what they got us. Wow, this is amazing. Such a big variety of different hardwoods and driftwoods that we can use for the hardscapes for our bioactive enclosures. I'm very impressed with not only the quality of the wood here, but also how many I was able to get with such a tight budget. And now, if you're like me, you probably assumed Temu was going to be like the other sites, only have gimmicky reptile stuff, but nothing of real value. But in fact, they have a good variety of useful supplies that you can get, including enclosures, misting systems, branches, like the ones you just saw, decor for your reptiles, and even a toilet for your frog. Wow, what a time to be alive. Now, if you guys are interested, make sure to download the Temu app through my link in the description box to get a $100 coupon bundle for free, or search the code that we have right here in the Temu search bar to claim. A huge shout out to Temu for sponsoring this video and giving us the supplies we need to keep Project Jungle going. Let's get back into the build. And now that we have an idea on how we'd like it, let's get into the materials for this. For this background, we are going to be using GE1 silicone, a couple of pond and stone tubes, and then lastly, sphagnum moss and cocoa fiber to tie it all together. Now, I found the great stuff does not stick to the walls of these kinds of enclosures very well, so beforehand we're going to add a layer of silicone that will then act as an anchor point and help keep our background secure. A pro tip that I recommend doing to save the hassle that I had to go through would be to let the silicone cure all the way before adding the background. I didn't do this and had to wait about a week before I could continue because the silicone couldn't cure as fast and still emitted odors in the enclosure after the background. Next, we put the hardscape materials back on and use the pond and stone great stuff to make a custom background for this enclosure. After it's all set, we'll give this 24 hours secure and then come back to it. Well, unless you did what I did and then end up having to wait a week. After everything is cured and the odors are gone in the enclosure, we can finally move on, and man, I love how this came together. This is the first custom background I've done using this method, and I was a little worried about how it would come out, but all in all, I dig it. Next step will be hardscaping this setup. Lucky for us, we are using PVC for this build, which means I can use screws to anchor the hardscape materials in place, which gives us plenty of opportunity to make something special, so let's see what I come up with. Well, that was a task, but it's done now. While this looks great, there is one problem. Visual screws everywhere. Now we're trying to make this look like a naturalistic enclosure, and screws aren't natural. To fix this problem, we'll just need to get some fake decor moss and super glue, and well, you'll see what the results look like now. Now, I absolutely love this method. Quick, easy, and you remain that aesthetically pleasing naturalistic style while having your hardscape still enclosed in the enclosure itself. Now moving on to our next problem. Doesn't look like there's enough substrate there. With the mix that we have right now, we're definitely not going to be able to get the job done, so it's time to make a fresh mix to put in this build. Now you're probably asking at this point, Dakota, where's the drainage layer? Or maybe you're a new person, you have no idea what my name is. If that's the case, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and all that stuff. The reason why is because this will be a hybrid enclosure. Leachies are big, I mean like very big, and will most likely crush any plant I could use for this size of an enclosure. Instead, we will keep the cleanup crew and the substrate and use pothos in a pot to still give it a bioactive feel while not being able to complete that cycle. And now after adding some final touches, the build is complete, and may I say, looking pretty fantastic. I absolutely love how this thing turned out. The best part about these builds is I don't really come in with a complete plan, I just wing it a little bit with a basic sketch inside my head and try to make it work, and most of the time, it does. Now we go into moving this bad boy into the enclosure, or back where the spot used to be. My god, this thing is so heavy, I didn't realize this was going to be this big of a deal. But we'll get it back into place and then get to the best part, pairing the Leachies. Now the time has finally arrived, setting these guys up in their new home. First up on the list is going to be my female. This girl is stunning with her bright pattern and cool polka dots. Yeah, that is why I got her. After she's set up, we get the male and do the exact same. 3 days have passed, and I'm happy to say so far everyone is getting along and there has been no fights. I'll continue to keep a close eye on the pair, but this is definitely a step in the right direction. We actually have a surprise about these guys that you can see over on our Patreon page. The link is right down there in the description if you'd be interested. And now, if you made it this far and you want to see some more builds like this, don't forget to like and subscribe this video to keep updated with Project Jungle, and a huge shout out to our Patreon members for making videos like this possible, and of course, thank you for Temu for sponsoring today's video. And as always, guys, I'll see you in the next one.